I'm going to call the meeting to order.
The meeting has been posted according to open meeting laws.
Roll call.
Sure. President Johnson.
Here.
Trustee Alexander.
Here.
Trustee Holm.
Here.
Trustee Nugent. Here. Trustee Renucci.
Here.
Trustee Smalley.
Here.
Trustee Wisniewski.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, before we do citizen participation, I believe we've got a number of people here who want to talk about School Street. So I want to say when we get to, I guess to the board, when we get to item 2 in miscellaneous business, that we would open up to allow citizens to just engage in more of a question and answer dialogue with the Lynch and Associates and with DPW, if that's okay.
Would you want a motion to that effect?
When we get there, I
Okay.
just, so if, I mean, you're welcome to come up during citizen participation, but we want to, make it a little easier on everybody. So I will open citizen participation. Let me read my blurb, and then if anybody has anything else non-School Street related, feel free to come on up. Per Village Resolution 2017-01, anyone wishing to address the village board during citizen participation will be allowed 5 minutes. Your subject must specifically relate to matters under the jurisdiction of the village board, whether on the agenda or not. The village board should not engage in a discussion regarding comments because it's not part of the publicly noticed agenda. Upon conclusion of the citizen participation segment, members of the audience are not allowed further comment unless they're participating in a public hearing or specifically allowed by a majority vote of the village board due to involvement in an agenda item. And the non-dialogue part is why I think it'd be better suited when we get to that agenda item. All of that said, does anybody have anything else they would like to speak to the board about during citizen participation? It's School Street is the oh, Mr. Zai, come on up. And for the record, even though we know who you are, please state your name and address.
Michael Zai, 1950 Fremont Street. I see you possibly are talking about a TID or a TIF tonight in closed session, and for the common person, it's very difficult to understand what it is and how it affects everybody. And I would like to see the board in some means educate the public so they know what they're doing as far as tax incentives. Okay, that's it for now.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, and for those who just walked in, we'll be doing more question and answer and discussion about School Street, if that's what you're here for. If anybody else has other citizen participation comments? Going once, going twice. Okay, I will close citizen participation. I'll move on to consent agenda. One motion and a second. We'll approve all the following items. Any item may be pulled from the list and voted on separately. I am going to ask that we postpone. I'm going to make a motion to postpone item 2 until our next meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And then on item 3, for the remaining items 1 and 3, just be aware that the motion would be contingent upon the recommendation within Eileen's memo. We're waiting on Lynch and Associates report. Yeah, so if you make a motion to approve 1 and 3, that's what you're recommending.
So I'll move to approve the consent agenda, item 1 and 3.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions?
I have a question, and maybe that would be a good idea then when the engineering firm would be available, because it has to do with the runoff on the lots. I know they said they're going to try to retain it on the property, but I just wanted to know if there's going to be any excess runoff. Is it going to end up in that pond down behind Road Ranger? Because that's usually where the ditch water and everything else runs to.
So regarding Culvers, their stormwater, they are detaining more than the pre-existing condition. So water still does get down there, but they are holding and retaining and infiltrating water on site that is greater than the amount in the pre-existing. So for instance, and just throwing out numbers, these are not right, if there's currently 10 CFS running off site, in the proposed condition, there'll be 8 CFS. So there'll be less stormwater going there than in the pre-existing condition. But this is a stormwater maintenance agreement that is before you related to maintenance. If they don't maintain it, the village has the power to come in and do some maintenance and whatnot.
I guess, and again, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't going to be inundating that pond that we already have the water from both sides of ES running into.
Correct, yes. So there'll be less water running there than there is today.
On the motion. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on to miscellaneous business. Item 1, consideration of bid award for municipal HVAC, lobby security, and other lobby improvements. Jason?
Okay, so we had our bid opening. We have Dean Schultz with us tonight from Excel. He's going to go over kind of the results of the bid opening and his recommendations on the project.
I'm assuming that they all have gotten the bid tab and my okay,
Sorry, bid tab and letter of recommendation.
thank you. So again, we received bids on the 22nd, and we received bids from 5 bidders, which was, for this size of project, was very encouraging. And the low bidder was Glenfern Construction out of Lake Geneva. And they were the low bidder as far as the base bid and all of the alternates except alternate number 3. And based on that information, I am recommending that you accept them as low bidder. And that is based on the fact that, you know, they were the low bidder. Their bids did include all the required submittal items, which included the bid bond, the proof of responsibility general statement, a schedule, the requested, what their markup would be, what their rates are, and their subcontractor list. They also have experience working with the village. We have received their preliminary schedule is reasonable. It's kind of, it fits the window that we expected. They are going to be working with us to provide a more detailed schedule, and also because there's a lot of different moving parts, because we're touching the entire building, I had a really good comfort level that they're going to be working with the village staff, and, you know, to make sure that everybody's safe and done in an efficient way. They do, we also looked at the personnel of Glenfern, and they do have a very experienced team that's going to be dedicated to this project. And they also have a very good understanding of what this project's going to entail. And they're conceptually, I like the way that they're going to attack it. There's still some details, obviously, that need to be worked out. And one of the other benefits to this firm is the fact that they are going to be self-performing the demolition, carpentry, insulation, flooring, so that they'll be able to better control the schedule, safety, and quality of the construction.
They're going to be doing it in-house as opposed to subcontractors?
Not everything, but those, you know, the demolition, carpentry, insulation, flooring are all going to be handled in-house by their personnel, which again will help the quality. And I'm also recommending that you accept the base bid, alternate bid number 1 and 2, which are the security upgrades, which basically is bullet-resistant, putting bullet-resistant glass on the openings for both the administration and the DPW side of the lobby. Accepting the alternate for bid number 3, which was putting the porcelain tile along the west wall of the lobby. Accepting alternate bid number 3, which was the automatic entrance doors for the east entrance. I'm also recommending that you budget $30,000 for construction contingency, just so that, any unforeseen conditions can be addressed. Budget $5,600 for soft cost, including AE fees and permit fees, and budget $30,000 for FF&E, which includes signage and furnishings. So that's my recommendation. I guess I'll take any questions you might have.
So I just want to add a couple things. I did speak with some references for Glenfern. We did do a project with Glenfern back in 2016. They constructed the Playmore Park Pavilion. And then they did work for both Walworth and Rock County and in very similar projects scoped as ours. And those went very well. So everybody I talked to, they also did a project or are doing a project for the Village of Union Grove. So the references all came back good. And then I just want you to also, in my memo, I'm recommending the base bid and alternates 1 and 2 with the engineering. That gives us a little bit left in contingency, a little less than 30 grand. So that's my recommendation, and that's based purely off the dollars that we have.
I just got a question on the markup. On the bid tab, what does the markup mean? They've got 17% on there. If you can take a look at that.
The markup is, if there is a change order, what their markup would be above the cost. So if there was a change order, we wanted to, for whatever reason, we wanted to add a door in a location, the cost from the subcontractor on that door would be, let's say, $1,000. The markup for the contractor would be 17%.
Yeah, 70.
So Jason, in your recommendation just now, you're not including the $86,000 for soft costs and FF&E and permits?
That's correct. That gives us some contingency left for some of those sorts of things. But again, I'm working backwards off of the dollars we have budgeted, so that's where my recommendation's coming from.
I got a question. Why porcelain tile?
I think that was just the aesthetic that we had picked out.
I
You know,
understand.
some of the renderings you saw, and that's the material Dean brought us.
Yeah, originally, because I think the question that I think comes up is, in the renderings I had presented, I actually had a stone product there. And we had just recently finished a project for a hospice wing for Marshfield. And we had used a product, a porcelain tile that looks like a stone. The beauty of it is it's less costly. Secondly, it's easier to clean. And I think because of those two reasons is why I'm recommending the porcelain tile.
The only reason I ask, excuse me, I put some porcelain in, and the only problem with porcelain that I've seen, it scratches very easily. And it also is very brittle.
So, a couple of things. So one is that's not in the recommended, or Jason's recommendation in his memo. That said, I think that aesthetically is going to be needed, whether it's stone or porcelain. I'll leave that to you all to decide. I also have a concern about, with alternate 4 and that being for more handicap accessible doors. And I know this is a quote or a bid for just the front entrance, but I think what I'm going to say is applicable to the police entrance and then this one over here. I have a hard time getting this door open from the inside when we leave. And that's, somebody was afraid after the CDA meeting of breaking it to try to get it open. My thought, my opinion here would be that we would add alternative 3, and we would add alternative 4 times 3 for the 3 entrances, and that those costs would be covered by our unallocated ARPA funds. I especially think that, while 3 is aesthetics, if we're going to be doing this, we should make it look good. But 4 is really about citizen access to this building, and it's beyond just coming to the front to engage with DPW or administration. It's people coming to the police. We have park and rec events. There's a yoga class here, I think, this evening, and this meeting, elections. I think if somebody needs help during the election, they got to ring a bell, and you got to go out and you got to help them in if they're in a wheelchair or something like that. So we want people to be able to have access. It's a public building. So that would be my opinion on this. I don't know, Jason, any thoughts?
Dean, do you have any thoughts on extending the handicap accessibility to the other entrances since we're not constructing those areas? Any concerns?
I really don't have any concerns, and I would believe that cost would be, as you would expect, 3 times as much, because you have 3 times as many units. I don't believe there should be any additional, cost because of the location in the buildings. I don't believe there should be. So I would expect that number to just be tripled. One thing I would say is just in the base bid, as far as that wall when you walk into the lobby, we do have that as an accent painted color. So, and we had, I'm hoping that we'd have enough to at least do some signage on that wall, in the base bid, if you didn't choose to take and put either the stone or the porcelain on that wall. So just as a comment to your comment.
You going to go for it, or do you want me to go?
I have another question yet. Excuse me.
Okay.
I'm sorry if I misunderstood here, but I said you're going to be putting porcelain tile on the wall. My question, because I know grouting porcelain tile is very tricky and you don't want to scratch the hell out of it. Trust me. But what is going to be in the floors? Is it going to be stone?
The floors are LVT. The flooring itself is an LVT product, luxury vinyl tile. Yeah. Is it? Okay.
I'll recommend that I'll make a motion that we award the contract, including the base bid, as well as alternatives 1, 2, 3, and 4, including the police and court entrances to the building for alternate 4. To Glen Fern Construction, contingent upon legal review.
And I'm going to ask a clarifying question to your motion. That's for staff to determine how to allocate these costs.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much for all your help in this. Looking forward to a,
Thank you. It's going to get dusty.
well, we say now we're looking forward to it. Ask us in a few months. Okay, we're going to move on to item 2. I'll read it in, and then I'll make a motion. Item 2, School Street. A, review of project scope and plans for reconstruction. B, consideration of amendment to engineering agreement with Lynch Engineering for the School Street project related to construction and special assessment services. So what I'd like Jason and Tim to do their presentation for the audience, and then I will make a motion now that once that presentation is done, that citizens can come up, ask their questions, and we can engage in a dialogue on this. Is there a second on that? I'll second it. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. All right. So if you guys want to do your presentation?
Yes, thank you. So School Street, so the project is located between Division and Main Street. It's gapped by Church Street, which was completed, is that 3 years ago now? 2 years? Something like that, as part of the Village Square project. We are keeping, for the most part, keeping everything on, within the Church Street radiuses. However, there are some light adjustments being made to make that all fit together for the new alignment on School Street. Some notable items, if you look on the west end, the water main itself is being replaced. So there's an existing, is that 4 or 6 inch, Jason?
6 inch on Division.
So there's existing 6 inch that we're replacing with an 8 throughout School Street. It's an older pipe, so while we're there before putting a nice new street on there, we're replacing that.
Everything on school is currently 4.
Everything in school is 4. Okay, that's what I thought. So we are gapping that into Division. So Division's a pretty, not say beat up street, but it's getting, I'll say it's long in the tooth a bit. We are putting the main in there further for that connection so that in the future, we don't have to cut back into the new pavement. Allows us to make that connection real nice. Other items of note, at the northeast corner of Church and School, we have a slight bump out there. That's to allow an existing flagpole to remain, and then to keep the same amount of parking and whatnot. There is sidewalk being added on the north side between Division and Church, and then the south side from Church to Main Street. Something that's a little bit of a challenge as we get closer to the lift station. It's a pretty picture. As we get closer to the lift station, the sidewalk is up close to the road just because there's a lot of slope there, and we're trying to get everything to match within there. Just for everybody's knowledge, the intersection of School and Main's a little bit of a challenge. We're doing the best we can. It will line up across from this potential development at Saywell, depending on the status of that. Those two will line up, which is a good thing traffic-wise. There's still just going to be a little bit of a challenge there with the elevations with School Street. I guess otherwise, Jason, anything else you want me to talk about? We are doing some sanitary sewer improvements. Those are still being worked out, whether or not there's going to be a relay or some spot repairs, but that's getting done now. Storm sewer, there's storm sewer on the east side. We're adding some new inlets. There's an existing 36 by 48 elliptical underneath the road, which is a big pipe that we are leaving alone, just because it's be very expensive and it's in good shape.
So we're planning sanitary laterals from the main, which is the middle of the street, to the property line. Those costs would be assessed to property owners. Water services from the water main to the property line with new shutoffs, those are paid for by the utility. The curb and gutter cost, there is not currently curb and gutter, so those costs are accessible. Existing sidewalk, we're looking to make repairs to what needs to be repaired. And then, as Tim mentioned, adding sidewalk in areas to enhance the village's network.
So before we have citizens, any questions on that presentation from the board?
I didn't think about this until just now, when I was looking at it later. Before, I didn't think about it. Is School Street, thank you, is this School, is the intersection of Mains and School, is that going to be widened at all? And actually, the picture actually makes it looks like it's getting wider as it goes east.
It's not being widened, the intersection isn't. It is matching close to what's there today. We are having to replace those because some of the elevations on those curbs dip down. But the essential width is very similar to what it is today.
Because I know how challenging it can be for someone turning off of Main onto School if they've got a reasonably sized vehicle. Right. So, yeah.
And the challenge about that, if we make that radius too long, then you've got some speed issues where people just kind of zip down, so we don't want that to happen either.
First question I have is, in in regards to the engineering fees and what's accessible and what isn't, because I know that when we did our Main Street work, you know, the square and Main Street and everything, that we had to make some pretty big changes as far as assessments and engineering. So I'd like to make sure that we're going to be consistent, thank you for that $5 word, with what we're doing now is what we did back then.
So
And I just want to make sure, because I thought if there's existing sidewalk and it gets replaced, that cost is shared, but if there's new stuff going in, the village pays for that.
and that's all called out in ordinance.
I understand, but
Okay.
I'm basically bringing this up now because I'm sure these people may have questions. Okay, I did look at some of the other items that were on the list there, and I'd like to take this opportunity now to thank Lynch and Associates for being responsive on the engineering and the inspections of the job. And I want to say thank you.
Thank you.
The inspection fees are a lot less than what they've been in the past. And I guess I have to figure you've got about 500 hours of inspection time on that.
That's correct.
And if there's less time than that, we will only get charged for the time for the inspections, correct?
That's correct.
And again, the amount per hour is a lot less than what it was in the past, and I want to thank for that. And let me see. Believe it or not, that's all I got.
You're getting off easy, Tim. Okay, so then what I'll ask is, and maybe, Tim, just to make this easy, if you maybe just take a seat next to Jason, and if anybody from the audience, citizens, have questions or comments about School Street, just come on up, say your name and your address, please, just for the record, and then we'll engage in a question and answer here. Our repeat commenter, Mr. Mike Zai.
My first question is the guy that was presenting about the remodeling, who is he?
Dean Schultz with Excel Engineering, he is the architect on the project.
Great.
Would he be considered the general?
No, Glenn Fern will be the general.
Okay.
So you're putting in the new water lines down School Street, and are you putting in new lines to the house?
Yeah, so a new water main down the middle, or down the end, side of the road, and then new services to each individual property from the main to the property line.
Okay.
And those are paid
So
for by
you'll
the
tie
utility.
in
And then
to
we
the
tie
ex-
into the existing at
existing-
that connection point, the
Okay, so-
existing connection point.
So is there a cost to the homeowners on water?
Not for the water, that's paid for by the utility.
Okay. We're paying that with our water bills.
Correct.
Okay. Then aprons will be accessible.
Correct, private driveway approaches.
Okay. And when you did Church Street, there were, the communication wasn't so great. And I was wondering if you could get cell phone, send out text messages to everybody when you're shutting water off. During this Church Street project, the construction company put pieces of paper at all the doors, and they shut the water off on my tenants, two of my tenants, and it was terrible communication, and everybody texts today, or if you want to send out emails, just so we know what's going on.
Sure, we could try to build a project.
Because there's not that many.
Address
There's not
book.
that many residences.
And so just so you're aware too, the plan would be, once the project goes out for bid, and then we have an apparent low bidder, we'll come in, much like we did tonight, ask the village board to award the project to that contractor. And then, once that happens, we'll have a public information meeting, probably hold that here. And then we'll start to talk about schedule, things like you're bringing up, and we can start to talk through some of that.
And there's no charge to the homeowner for curb?
Curb is accessible, yes.
Oh, it is, okay. 100%?
I believe it is 100%. Let me look at ordinance. It's the contract price, lineal footage price based by the width of your lot.
Okay. Great. That's all for now.
Thanks, Mike.
Says the property shall be assessed for the total cost to property frontage for new curb and gutter, which is not being replaced. And when it's replaced, that's when it's a 50-50 split, 50% village, 50% property owner.
And I believe sidewalk is, net new sidewalk is 100% village, and repair, replace is 50%.
Correct.
Okay. Other questions, discussion items that you have?
Division Street, corner lot, real long curb and gutter. Brad. So, speaking with Jason, brought to my attention that I don't actually own 8 feet of the property from the road to my house. There's that nice little green shading, that, correct?
So if you could drill in, well, actually, maybe it would be easier. Can you go into GIS, Walworth County GIS? Please?
They like to do work on that at night, and
Oh, I got it up. It seems to be.
So, you still working on it?
yeah, she,
We'll try to get the aerial view
I think
here.
there's a lot of people that might not be aware of this as well, including my neighbors.
Sorry, didn't mean to put you on the spot.
I see it.
It wants to. So that's actually the parcel.
So that nice checkered line, I just found out is not my property anymore. That's cool. So with that being said, you just was explaining that new curb and gutter will be charged to the homeowner? Or, correct?
That's correct.
Well, I don't own that property. Why do I have to pay for it?
Per village ordinance, adjacent to your property where the curb and gutter
For
is
how far adjacent?
the width of the lot. So
No,
let's
no,
just
no.
say your lot is 75 foot wide, then,
It's longer than that. It's like 96.
okay.
So I still,
Hold on a second.
because you've taken the choice away from us. We don't really have a choice.
You have
in-
a Division Street address?
Yeah, 2054 Division Street, so I technically don't live on School Street. My driveway is on School Street.
Corner property shall only be assessed under subsection A and C for the frontage on addressing front side. So you will not be assessed for curb and gutter because your address is on Division Street.
But we're still going to end up losing 26 feet, correct?
So your
26 feet
driveway
of
is
driveway, right?
currently not compliant, correct?
Okay. But it has been since 1906 when the house was built, and the driveway's been sitting there, and there has not been a problem with it. The issue that I have with it is I have a son that's close to being he's a couple of years away from getting his license. I have a daughter that has her license that lives with us. I have my mother-in-law, I have me, and my wife, and I also have a work vehicle. So how do we get in and out of our driveway without disrupting traffic on School Street every morning?
So, and for the board's reference, what he's referring to is essentially at this point, he's got probably 4 wide parking for
At
4
least
vehicles
five,
wide?
five.
5. And per village ordinance, that is not compliant with, having that big of a driveway open and having that wide of a driveway.
yeah, and so a couple of things. One is, like Jason and I talked about, just, I had not even looked at this map just yet, and I said, hey, so I'm not going to make you switch windows, Eileen, but we were talking about adding sidewalk north across the street from you on School Street, and it's like, well, but when we're adding.
There
on
is
the-
sidewalk.
No, I know, but, well, not on the portion directly north of you there.
Yes, there is.
Is there?
There is. It
Can you
stretches
scroll?
all the way from Union to Division.
On the north side.
Church to Division.
I'm sorry, I misspoke, yeah. So, but we're not going to extend that on the north side all the way down because of the elevation. So you could see it stops right there. And you can see there on the south, it just goes from there west to your property. And so this project will extend it, so it's like, well, you know, why, well, now I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm over one street. My apologies. So I'm like, why are we not going across, in essence, your property there? And we started talking about looking at the map and looking at your driveway. I mean, it's there. We have a number of parcels in the village where at some point they were built and they've been that way and they're existing, and then at some point ordinance changed or whatnot. I don't see, I would assume that there's no issue, because we're not going to put a sidewalk across where he would be, his parked vehicles would be blocking a sidewalk. There's no pedestrian impediment there. I think we're just adding a curb. There's no real other change to his property. Is that, am I saying that correctly?
Well, but to operate under village ordinance, the maximum opening and curb, I think, is 30 foot, which isn't sufficient enough to get the area he needs for parking.
Yeah, it's 30 feet at the curb opening and 24 at the property line.
And
I
that's out of
probably
village
wouldn't have
ordinance.
that big of a deal with it if we were more in the center of, like the center of a block, but I don't know if any of you guys witnessed when you guys were working on 20, and he knows all about it, about how it became like just pretty much a speedway, a raceway. It's like they hit the stop sign on Church Street and try to get the Division as fast as they can. And it's, even after they open, it's still that. It's how do we back out of the driveway to let another vehicle out without causing a disruption? Somebody comes around the corner, I would probably say maybe 60 feet from the corner to my driveway. What's going to prevent somebody, if it's raining or if it's snowing or if there's ice, what's going to prevent somebody from not hitting us?
From a transportation standpoint, I don't think it's really any different than other streets. And in fact, with there being a stop, with it ending at the end of School Street, just to your west, I don't see that being any different. That would be different than any other driveway.
Have you seen that street? Have you witnessed traffic on that street? I live on that street.
And agreed, traffic was definitely increased during the Highway 20
Yeah,
project
I'm
on
not
School Street.
comparing it to that's what it's going to be like now. I get that, but there's also, there isn't that, it's a cut through. It's, no matter if there's construction or not, it is a cut through. Because why would anybody, if they have to get to ES, why would they go all the way through the square when they can just cut through? It is a cut through street, no matter which way we look at it, and that's just the nature of the beast. And it becomes, we have 5 vehicles in my house, 5 drivers. If somebody has to get out of the driveway, if somebody has to move, if we have to move a vehicle now blocking traffic to get somebody out of the garage, you see how it can be just a logistic nightmare, in a sense? I don't know, it's up to you. I just think it's senseless. There's no point. I understand ordinances, I get that. And the fact of, even if you wanted to, I know you used the thought of if we would have ran a sidewalk through there, you wouldn't be able to. You would be putting it in our yard. You would be putting it probably a foot off the neighbor's yard. Because I'm
That's
assuming
why we said no to
there's
that.
ordinances between how big the apron has to be between the road and the sidewalk itself, right? For safety reasons, you can't just have it a couple inches to the curb.
No, there actually isn't. Between back of curb and front of sidewalk?
Yeah, there isn't.
There is not.
Okay. I would just assume that there would be, just for safety purposes and people driving and blah, blah, blah.
So is this curbing, is it the,
We would propose full head curb, which is a 90-degree angle. That's what we've done, and that's what we did on Church Street, for instance.
Are you raising the street? Or is it going to, elevation going to be similar to what it is now?
Elevation would be relatively similar. The challenge, especially that section of school, is getting it to drain. It does all drain to the east with no catch basins there, so it's going to be very similar. Now, right now, it kind of goes up and down a little bit. There is a constant elevation to the east, though. So it's very similar to what it is today.
So when we start putting in, there is no curb, obviously, between Church and schools, or Church and Division Street. What does that do to grading on everybody's property?
It's part of the design. I mean, I don't have that in front of me here, but it does still drain out to the
No,
street.
grading, like if you, what's a curb? 6 inches? So you're now raising it 6 inches if we keep the road at the same elevation that it is now,
Right.
correct?
That's part of the design.
What about the everybody's driveway? Aren't
Those
you-
are all being adjusted. We have full engineering plans that
What
detail
about
that.
garages?
What's that?
What about people's garage?
We're matching as best we can.
I don't know personally, but I can see 2 garages across the street from my house every day. They're gonna be below grade. They're gonna be below road.
They probably currently are. It's very tight, especially to the north.
I think the guy just built his garage. Oh, shit, I didn't even see you walk in. Excuse my language. When did you get the permit for that? To build? Years ago. You guys didn't know you were gonna put curb and gutter in? Sorry, I'm speaking out of turn. But, so I don't know.
so,
I just, it just doesn't make sense to put, and I'm not saying it because it's, even if it was the woman that lives across the street from me, or them, or my neighbor, it doesn't make sense to run curb all the way through that existing driveway. I think it's, total driveway is 52 feet from where it is. If you want to take, let's go from property line, take a 2 feet to the, what would that be, the east, and take 2 feet to the west, maybe, you can still get vehicles in there, but do you understand my concern of every morning when kids go to school and my daughter's backing out of the driveway, or somebody has to move a car to get another car out? Unless we should just plan our lives better? Is that what you want? We can just plan it out better every
Okay.
day, so we know when people are going to leave the house.
so, sir,
I know,
This-
I'm just saying, it's
Well,
it's senseless.
okay,
There's no
and that's why
point.
that's why we're here to have the conversation.
Yes.
Let's keep it respectful, please.
No, I know. It's you're doing something that doesn't need to be done, and at my cost, yeah, on top of it. It's not like you guys are. All right.
So, thank you.
That's all I got
I
to
think
say.
we'll take a look at what makes sense from a water drainage especially. It's just, we'll double check our figures.
Yeah, from the standpoint of drainage, yes, the drainage will work. So that has been engineered, that has been looked at. From the standpoint of the driveway width, we designed it currently per ordinance. And if the village board would want to change that, that's fine, but that's how it was designed.
Other questions, comments? Please state your name and address. I'm sorry, can you if you hit the button there?
Great. Thanks. Patricia Keys, 2854 School Street, kind of in the middle of the bigger block there. Where the double driveway apron is for myself and my neighbors.
They're on the north side there?
I'm on the north side,
Okay.
yes. House built in roughly 1860. My first question is, are these dotted lines intended sidewalk?
So this is the GIS from the county map. This is not engineering plans here. Those dotted lines are the approximate property lines. Now, it's GIS maps, which are notoriously wrong. A surveyor would tell you that means get it surveyed, but those are approximately where your property lines are.
Fine. So they're not intended sidewalks, they're the property line. And the property line at my home is inside the sidewalk, and the rest is the terrace, and the village has the terrace.
Correct. It's very typical, and not standard, but typical for the sidewalk to either be 0 or a half foot or 1 foot within the right-of-way. So your property would be that distance behind, which is pretty typical.
Okay. Thank you. That question needed to be answered for one thing. I want it in the board minutes. I want to address you as a board. You have put us as property owners through 2 obnoxious, destructive projects. The one that worked on the square, the Main Street and Church Street. And this last one, where we were the unofficial detour for Highway 20 that didn't have detour signs, but we had exactly what was just spoken about, people just speeding through who have not quit. Highway 20 is open, but everyone has found the way to go through and blow that stop sign and speed past properties. When you had the larger project at the square, we had trucks come dig out massive piles of things, jackhammers, a lot of fun, pile up the dirt. At the end of the day, they'd put the dirt back in. Then they'd come and pull it out again. We are kind of done with you. We're not ready for another year of tear it up and make it improved. Kind of as you're saying, thanks, I don't want to improve my driveway. I'm the lucky person in this group because we have unequal frontage, unequal need for gutter, curb, and apron. My property is narrow, kind of obnoxiously narrow from my standpoint, but I am the one that has curb. Not gutter, but I have curb. But my curb is more than standard height tall because of the way the street angles, which means you're going to say my curb needs to go to standard and mess it up anyway. The properties down here that are not going to get sidewalk because that's not what that line is, curb will not improve those properties. You have to look really, really hard at the definition of the word improvement. You're not offering us improvements. You're offering us to help you pay the costs of something that we don't need and won't appreciate.
Thank you. Yeah, I do want to clarify that both the Highway 20 project was not a board project, that's a state project. And Highway ES was a county project. Yes, we were a participant in that for working on the square, but that project in terms of going along ES there was mostly county. So I do empathize, though, with the disruption to your life. I genuinely do. Is that curb right there? It's hard to see on that map.
So I would consider that retaining wall. It's, I don't know, probably a 2-foot wall.
And so that would be, under the current design, would be removed and replaced with standard curb.
Correct. Yeah, it's a small section of road. There's some real tricky areas. This is one of them to make everything work right.
Chief, what do we do? It's been a little while since I went over there. Where are the stop signs? Is that either of these a 4-way stop intersection?
Church and School Street is a 4-way stop.
I mean, there's a stop at Main Street, right?
There's a stop at Main Street and a stop at Division Street.
Okay. Other questions, comments, please? This is your time.
Marty Zess, I'm here representing my mother. She lives on Main Street. It's 2838 Main Street, but we back up to School Street. Could you pull up the engineering plans again? One question I got is the sidewalk on the south side, why is it on the south side? Or why was it designed to be put on the south side?
We evaluated both sides, and that was the side that made sense from a, how do you fit this in there? Both sides had some good challenges with them.
I mean, I've lived around that area for over 60 years, and I would think the north side would be a lot easier to get to. And I watched one of the meetings where the mayor wanted it on the south side. He pretty much directed you to put it on the south side. Is there reasoning behind that? Or, I mean, I
think
look
it's
at,
just
I
that-
look at the south side being a bigger drop-off. You're gonna have to fill in my parents' property to get that sidewalk in there. I mean, that's a sharp drop-off right now.
The challenge is on the east end, the north side, the elevations there. Getting a sidewalk in that's not too steep. That's essentially the challenge.
Along with some driveways there as well. It's, both sides were evaluated, and the south side was taken from the standpoint of, it was easier to get an engineering plan that worked there. There is some filling along the south side there where you're talking about, but if you also notice, that's why the sidewalk is tucked up closer to the road there to minimize that.
I see that. What's that pitch gonna be from that sidewalk down to the yard now? Or how are you gonna taper that back in?
I don't have that in front of me. Do you recall?
I don't.
I'd have to look it up. I can get back to you on that.
Obviously, we're going to leave something that's mowable.
And then the second question I got is, that's a large lot there. And I would say the future is probably going to be divided. Right now, it's not divided, but it's got a possibility of being divided. I talked to Jason about it last winter to at least get the sewer and water out of the street to get a tap there. And he came back and said it had to be divided, surveyed beforehand. Well, that ain't gonna happen until 5 or 6 years down the road, and I'd hate to open that back up at that time. I mean, we're willing to pay for it, the
Actually,
sewer
just for
part of it.
clarity, that's what Tim Schwecke came back with.
Let's take that in a separate conversation with Tim, just to be clear on his reasoning behind that. So I'm sorry, I can't answer that, but
Okay,
let's
but I'd like to have that be
have
considered,
a
that,
conversation about it, yeah.
I mean, do it now instead of tearing it back up. Other than that, I guess, and we're paying 100% on the curb and gutter?
Your address it's
It's
not
on
a
Main
corner
Street.
lot.
But her address is on Main Street.
It is Main Street, though. But that address concern addresses corner lots. I just want to get clarity from legal. I tend to agree with what you're saying, but I think we need clarity from legal on that.
And I think that those questions and that many of you have had about assessments to Forty's question earlier, we'll have an assessment plan, as you said, that has to come back.
Correct.
But as of right now, if your address is on, let's say, Main Street, she's not going to get assessed for that curb and gutter, is that correct?
We need to get clarity on that. The ordinance specifically calls out corner properties. That's obviously not the case with that property, so. I just don't want to tell you something and then have to backtrack later.
Well, it would be a corner property. The corner's just farther away.
Well, clarify it though, do they, I mean, is it all the way to the point?
What? No.
Oh, the
No, we
Village
have-
owns
It
the
goes
lift
up to
station.
the lift station.
We have
That's what I'm asking, yeah, I know, I understand that, but, so that your lot goes from the west, your west lot line up to the lift station lot?
Right.
I also would just say, we did receive her letter, so, thank you.
I could have brought her, but, the other question is with the driveways for aprons, you're gonna cut it's an existing concrete driveway, so you're gonna replace that.
Yeah, so driveway will be replaced in kind. So if it's concrete, that'll be replaced with concrete. We tend to try to choose existing joints or where it makes sense to
Yeah.
cut in.
And then your sidewalk would be cut into the driveway.
Correct.
All righty, thanks.
Thank you. Other questions or comments?
Tim Coolidge, 2862 School Street. About the sidewalks and the curbs and things like that. It's been working fine for God knows how many years. I've been here for almost 40 years. There hasn't been any flooding. There's no problem with curbs. Sidewalks are fine. Nobody minds what's going on. People have been walking that street for probably 100 years, long before I've been here. My dad had an old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments or discussion? Okay. So before us, in terms of action, is the consideration of amendment to the engineering agreement with Lynch Engineering for the School Street project related to construction and special assessment. What would be the timeline on determining those assessments?
In the past, we've had bids before we prepare that report.
Would we be able to estimate based upon what we're thinking here?
We could.
Well, and let's just talk about bid. What do you see as a timeline for that? Maybe that helps answer the question.
So timeline for bid, construction plans pending some revisions, which would be minor in either case, are probably about a week or two from Jason's having them in his hands for review. There is another amendment we're talking about here after this item for Executive Drive. The thought process is on Executive Drive to bid the two projects together. That's finishing the cul-de-sac out at Executive. That has not been designed yet, so probably bidding towards maybe the end of January, would be the thought,
And construction would be
in spring.
for approximately how long?
About 2 to 3 months.
And remind me again, Jason, did we talk about sewer laterals and lining of those?
So we're actually going to open cut them, excavate new pipes rather than sewer lining. With a project this size, sewer lining will be more expensive than open cut.
So I know that was an assessment issue when Main Street was done.
Yeah, when we did Main Street, it was much more cost effective to do the lining, and we looked at it on a different project since, and it's just gotten out of hand because there's only a couple of contractors that do municipal work.
I get one question, and I'm just curious about the water. You're just doing sewer, correct? And water?
We're doing new water main as well.
Okay, when you get to the house, though, when you're going to go up to the village, the lot line?
Property line, correct?
Property line. Are there any contingencies or anything made if you discover, are there any lead services there?
Not coming into the basement, there could be lead goosenecks. This is all original 4-inch pipe, so there could be, I'm assuming what you're getting at is potentially going all the way into the home. It really comes down to a question for the contractor if they have the capacity to do more, take on more work.
But I guess if we do discover any of those, there's a number of grants being offered, especially from the federal government, about elimination of lead piping. So if we have that concern, then we should include that as, I guess, an option in the bid. Because I don't want to have somebody come out who is not prepared to address that.
Yeah, Jason's mentioned, we could bid that as an alternate. And if we get to the case where it happens, at least we have a base cost for it. The tough part is when we don't have that and we do a change order because we add one or two of them, then it's, may not be as cost effective.
Yes, ma'am, you had a question?
Plus, I would like to make sure that we at least can inform the homeowners about what's being found.
I can tell you from the inside of a home that's well over 100 years old. My sewer cleanout is in the middle of my driveway, concrete driveway, 70 feet back from the lot line. And I absolutely have lead in the basement going out. That home had an outhouse when it was built.
Well, if that's sewer, though, I'm talking about drinking water.
Yeah.
That's a different.
When they put in sewer and they put in water, it was both when they took the outhouse out. But if your project creates an opportunity for me to have my entire driveway pulled out, go back to the definition of improvement.
I want to make sure, though, that we can properly address any lead piping.
Yep, we'll do that.
There are questions for Tim? I'm sorry, Marty.
There's existing storm sewer towards the bottom of it, and we are adding some inlets towards the east end. We are not running new storm sewer up because there's a good amount of slope and.
So it's not going to go down that asphalt curb and gutter and then cut into your property where it does now?
Correct, there'll be a new.
There'll be curb inlets.
There'll be curb inlets that'll capture it. And, yeah, there's elevation challenges to make sure that happens, but that's been looked at.
Okay. The item before the board is the agreement with Lynch.
I'll make a motion, we approve the engineering agreement with Lynch Engineering on the School Street project.
Second.
Any other questions or discussion?
Is it the 98-5150? Is that what you're?
Yeah, if that's the engineering agreement.
Tim is nodding his head yes. Okay. Any other questions or discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your feedback. I think we need to take that and we need to look at, as we bid this out, how do we best address your questions and concerns? We're not going to make everybody happy. I can't promise that we're just going to magically fix all that. The road, unfortunately, does need to be redone. But we don't know these things until you come and talk to us. So as painful as it is, thank you. Item 3, which Tim alluded to, consideration of engineering agreement with Lynch for South Executive Drive to complete the cul-de-sac, and this is in TID 4. Any questions on this one?
This is all in the TID, correct?
That's correct. And the original request was to add it to School Street, but we wanted to bring a separate agreement so we could track the TID dollars separately. The projects will be bid together, but there'll be two separate areas so we can keep the contractor's dollars separate, but it allows the TID money to go forward and,
Part A and Part B.
correct.
And everybody gets why we didn't just pave it the first time around, right? I just want to make sure, okay.
We actually didn't know what was going to happen out there.
I'll make a motion to approve the engineering proposal from Lynch to complete the South Executive Drive cul-de-sac.
I'll second that.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, consider renewal of code enforcement contract with Municipal Code Enforcement LLC for 2024. Any questions for the chief on his memo?
From reading it, Jeremy, you said that everything's been working out really well?
Yes, it has.
And these amounts have been included in the budget.
Correct.
I'll make a motion to approve the renewal of the code enforcement contract with Municipal Code Enforcement LLC for the year 2024.
I'll second it.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item 5, recommendation from the Plan Commission, ordinance 2023-11, amendment of the zoning code with regard to outdoor storage in the mixed business/light industrial design overlay district, MDC East Troy LLC applicant, Josh Manti, agent, application 2023-34. And then we'll do B here in a minute, but both A and B were approved just prior to this meeting by the Plan Commission.
I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance 2023-11.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, conditional use for outdoor storage and wholesaling related to a new industrial building located at 2616 South Executive Drive, RA 498700002, MDC East Troy LLC applicant, Josh Manti, agent, application 2023-26.
I'll move to approve the conditional use application 2023-26.
And I'll second that.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to reports. Item 1, airport minutes from October 9th, 2023. Any questions? Doug's here, or questions for Jim?
Of course, I have a question. It never fails, right? From the citizen participation, Sam Tabor asked about the whereabouts for the contact flow chart for the airport. And?
Do you have it? It seems to be a mystery. Lori, the keeper of everything at the airport, had no idea about it, so we're not sure there ever,
I don't know what it is.
nobody knows about it, so I'm not sure. So we're going to start from scratch.
For some reason, I have to tell you, though, when Al was here, our police chief, nothing, that's how, it was a while back. I thought that's when it was started. Because I remember there was
They
some-
made it seem like
there
it
was
went
an
back
incident-
way further than that.
Well,
but
there was
I
an
don't know.
incident or two out there that happened, and that's why I think it came up again.
I guess, Jeremy, if you find anything, send it our way.
He has that researching look on his face.
I've never seen it, never heard of it, so.
Okay.
I'm just saying, I know it was discussed at a board meeting, but if it went any farther, I don't know.
Any other questions about airport? No? Okay. Misfire. Okay, moving on. Item 2, East Troy Area Emergency Services District minutes from October 17th. Questions for Jason?
Not a question for myself, but a comment. You do have a handout there. And you'll see these going forward in the packet. There's 2 reports that do show fire calls and rescue calls year over year. It is labeled the months 1 through 12, 40.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And there also is a chief's report in there for your review.
Thanks, Jason, I appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
Are you taking up in December here the modified agreement? Because I received red lines and I think they're good enough.
That's what I heard. We were talking about you.
Okay. As many people do, I'm sure. All right. Anything else for emergency services? All right. Item 3, library board minutes from October 10th. Any questions for Mary? I was going to say, now that the county budget should be done, we're going to follow up with Mark Liberta about next steps on Tri-Troy. Item 4, draft plan commission minutes from November 13th. Questions for 40? Okay. All right. With that, I will make a motion to adjourn to closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 1985 1E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, investing public funds, or conducting of other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require closed session, offer to purchase property, and TID for potential amendment to development agreement.
Second.
Roll call vote, please. Yes.
Trustee Alexander. Trustee Holm.
Yes.
Trustee Nugent. Trustee Renucci. Trustee Smalley.